It's been a fun last 2 weeks, hasn't it, gents?
Just let it ride, Ray. Let it ride.
All right. It is all good.
Fun is a word.
Fun is a word. I don't know if it applies to this show.
Not at all. Fun is a
No,
word that's never been applied to this show.
I don't know if it applies to the last 2 weeks. I mean, it doesn't always have to apply for everybody. It could be anything, really. But
That's true.
yeah.
Yes. Welcome to Vagabond Nerds. It is a show that is done on the interwebs. And that's about all that can really be said for it.
That's all we really want to say for it.
Yeah. I am 1/3 of the triumvirate that is three monkeys at a typewriter.
We have not written Shakespeare.
Not even close.
I don't even think. I think calling us three monkeys in a typewriter is an affront to three monkeys
Monkeys
in
at
a
a
typewriter.
typewriter. Yeah.
No, we have written an episode of She-Hulk.
Yeah.
Too soon? Was that too soon?
Too soon.
Okay.
Hey, look, what I can say is, and again, we'll get to it when we get to it. At least it's not as low as my opinion is of DC art editors at the moment.
DC art editors.
I got nothing.
You know what? I don't even want to give them the time of day. I don't.
It's not worth it.
But you know where you can find good DC comics and good DC art, Jason?
Probably not at Fiesta.
Yeah. However,
True.
Conveniently close to an El Phoenix is Jeremy over at Titan Comics. 31284 Slane, Suite 250, Dallas, Texas 75234. Please go visit Jeremy for actually good DC comics and Marvel comics and independent comics like our good friend over over in Antarctic.
If you're feeling froggy, stop by El Phoenix. Maybe get a bag of tamales. Who knows?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. The tamales are good though. I'm not even gonna
don't get tamales at El Phoenix.
I'm not a fan of El Phoenix. Yeah.
Well, yeah, no. I mean, you know, my order is sour cream chicken enchiladas. Like that's what I do. But yeah, I mean, Dallas.
Really, you don't? I like the green, the verde chicken enchiladas. Is my. It's not a go-to, but I would prefer that over the sour cream ones.
Oh, I love the sour cream chicken enchiladas.
While you are at Titan Comics, pick up Dark Spaces Wildfire #2. My recommendation for just a great story. I don't even want to give it away. It is about female firefighters that are helping as part of their prison sentence. But first issue was really good. Second issue, again, just that's my pick for the month for sure. Scott Snyder, here's someone who went and did Batman for a bit. Can't ever go wrong with that writer. He's been proven time and time again. The artwork is absolutely fantastic on this. Yep. In addition to that, Titan is running a Labor Day sale Monday, one day only. $4 pops and some other stuff he's got. But when he does a sidewalk sale, there's a lot more inventory that you guys don't see that Jeremy puts out there for very good prices. So
yes. Oh yeah, no, I got one of so I actually got it was tattered and torn, but I love it. It was actually issue 2 or 3 of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles for like a couple of bucks.
I don't even think it was that. Yeah. But always priced right, and Jeremy's not gonna pull one all over it. So anyway, go see our good friend, good sponsor, Titan Comics.
Yeah. Again, purveyor of all of the finest geeky accoutrement.
What an interesting week for Hollywood. If DC Warner Brothers isn't canceling stuff or stars not apologizing for stuff, let's just stick to the film aspect of this. Good Lord. Any other words to call DC Warner Brothers right now other than a mess?
I mean, dumpster fire.
All right.
It's a rebuilding year.
It's a rebuilding year.
Look at Jason with the sports terms. Very nice. Also, if you're a Dallas Cowboy fan.
Also, that's every year.
And I am one. I get to say that.
I've lived in Dallas, with the exception of 3 or 4 years that I was in Nacogdoches. I've been in Dallas my entire life. Trust me, I know what I know what a rebuilding year means.
Yeah. I'm 1/16th Dallas Cowboy fan. I can talk crap.
So I mean, but a couple of good things though here, right? It's good that somebody did issue an apology for their recent behavior. That's a start. That's always a start. You got to start somewhere. An apology is a good place to begin. The other thing is they mentioned they were bringing in, what they claim could be DC's, answer to a Kevin Feige to possibly build out DC a little bit better and Warner Brothers a little bit better. But I don't know this guy from Adam. Do you guys know anything about him at all?
He did you know what? I can't even remember some of the movies he's produced or whatnot. The bottom line is I don't think that's the pedigree of Kevin Feige, and that's not a slam against the guy. He could absolutely just come in and rock everyone's world with his plans. But
what did Kevin Feige have under his belt before he started this?
All 3 Spider-Man. He had X-Men. He was producing on that. I mean, he got a lot of producer credits.
Yeah.
For existing Marvel or Sony movies at the time.
Yeah,
right.
And
that's why they got him.
For sure.
Okay.
But he was also, again, that's the thing, is he was also very familiar with the properties. That's the thing. Is he had the movie experience, but he also valued and actually was a fan
the comics and the property.
Right.
Okay.
And that's really been one of those problems that Hollywood's always had, and you could argue still has in a lot of ways. You have people who are in the industry, but they don't actually appreciate or value the properties, right? They don't understand the properties, where they're coming from. And so that's why you get why you get what you get sometimes, right?
This one's for Genesis. Let me slam a couple DC properties. It is the difference between Sandman quality on Netflix and let Ryan Reynolds fly around in a green suit. That's CGI. And the fact that we still have some of that, out there, where they don't respect the core material after what they've seen, what you can get when you respect the core material, does surprise me still.
Dan Lin is the guy's name, by the way, that they're looking at.
Thank you.
Sorry. And it looks like, so apparently his credits are producer for the Sherlock Holmes, the Robert Downey Jr. versions of Sherlock Holmes.
Okay.
And Lego Movie Batman and Lego Ninjago, at least.
Oh, well, if he did Lego Ninjago and was a producer on that, how could we possibly go wrong?
I think that's right. But here goes the thing, though. To that point, what if he is that closeted Kevin Feige comic book nerd,
which is highly. It's possible.
Yeah,
very possible. Yeah.
Well, here's the thing: he doesn't even have to be a comic nerd. I think if he's someone who says, "Look, the reason we're doing this is because the properties have value because of what has come before, what's already out there," then I need to at least respect what's coming out, and he can learn. Like, you don't have to actually love and appreciate this material.
That's true.
On your own, but you can say, "Look, this is a prop." Okay, so this is my whole thing about the properties. I don't mind when changes are made. I never have, right? I mean, the greatest examples, Guardians of the Galaxy, right? The changes made there are brilliant because, with the exception of Groot and Rocket, most of those are just very bland characters. Gamora's pretty good, in the comics version, but changing something isn't my problem. It's are you adding something new that's actually a benefit to it? Oftentimes people don't respect, they just look and say, well, these idiots are going to come and watch whatever we put out, so we'll just do whatever the hell we want. And then that's when you get Green Lantern or She-Hulk, attorney at law.
And to your point, it's done everywhere. I mean, it's even done.
We'll talk about it later, Sean.
It's even done in the comic books where you take great Hispanic Heritage Months and then you add tamales or something. I don't know.
Right.
Everyone has to approach it in such a way that just respect what's come before, respect the property. If you were going to change it, again, to Jason's point, then treat it as if you are treating it like Guardians of the Galaxy. Look, this is going to be fun, but we're going to have a lot of creativeness with it, because quite frankly, the origin of it is just, it's not as good as what we're going to put out. And then what happens? You see Marvel Publishing Division follow suit. They're like, oh my God, that Guardians of the Galaxy works. And so it's shifted in the books as well. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Well, another great example of this is literally Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, with what they did with Miles Morales. The Miles Morales you get in that movie is not the comics Miles Morales, but it's a much better version of it.
Well, I think it's a version that works better on. It's translated more.
Correct.
Like that's the hard thing, as we've mentioned before, is getting writings into screen format, and that's why a lot of these changes take place. And there's nothing wrong with that as long as you're doing it appropriately. When you change things just to change them from a producer's aspect, where they're like, I think it would be better if. No, that's your dumbass producer idea, and you need to keep that shit to yourself. Come up with a better idea, or let the people who understand the property better than you do suggest what would be an acceptable change.
Right.
Okay, though it's always about too much money behind the scenes, and that's
I know
to that point, that Discovery Warner Brothers merger, that's what it looks like it's about. It's about too much money being spent. I mean, what they say, they had to figure out a way to save $1.3 billion. One of the things that I read recently was, the reason movies were getting axes is because they can only afford to put out so many more movies this year. And so that's why Shazam's getting pushed back. That's why a couple of the ones in November are getting pushed back. Because if you think about it, what I was reading was Warner Brothers only has 2 more movies that they're going to put out this year. Black Adam being one, and then something in November, and then that's it.
What do you think is the reason behind that? I mean, I know
it's probably
money. All
Go ahead, Sean, because I knew that's what you were about to say. I mean, besides the money. Oh, look at that. He took himself off.
As soon as you said that, I just looked at Sean. I'm like, that was the most. If there was ever a look that just said "F you" with the most sincerity, it's
no. He's done worse. That was that. He's given me worse looks. Go ahead, Sean.
I know it's money. I'm wondering, where do you think the lack of that? Where is that pain point? Where is the cash flow being choked? Is it ticket sales at theaters because people can watch things online now? Where is it? Where do you think it's coming from? Okay, Jason.
I'm sorry, you said choked. Now all I have is just daddy issues.
Wow. Pole dancing joke this early in the show. Funny.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. Because I don't think there's any 1-2 ways about it. I think when you have multiple divisions and they're saying, well, we're going to give you money, it's a lot harder to account in the industry for how do views, when you're talking about a streaming service, how do views per person or views per show or movie or whatever, how does that translate into cash if you don't have subscribers, or rather if you don't have advertisers? And you're not getting a per person ticket. But I think all of that, no one really knew like what all those losses were combined. You have a show that's being put out, for $30 million an episode, something like a Game of Thrones, and then you have a movie that's done for $20 million. While it's still at the end of the road, it's 2 different parts of that company. It's 2 different divisions, but it all goes up to the top. So I think it's.
Are they over budgeting for these films, and they don't have the that's the idea, right? Everybody's got a projected revenue. Everybody says, I've got this much money and this is what we're going to spend it on. They budget, they plan, and then they execute and they take those movies forward. So is this a result of 2 years worth of a pandemic causing them that lack of cash flow, and they're going to be in Dutch for a couple of years until they get back on their feet? Or is this a lack of ticketing and sales and people not going to see them in the theaters? Are they over budgeting and giving their HBO Max properties the wrong things? And since it's Warner Brothers, I mean, what's the situation? Warner Brothers is buying. They're buying properties, like they're spending this money to buy these other competitors.
Well, it's not Warner Brothers. That was Discovery buying.
Sorry, Discovery buying Warner Brothers. So, but I mean, so somebody's got money to do this kind of shit somewhere. Why are we seeing such a poor quality? And like, what's the problem? I just don't understand it.
Okay, so here's the thing. I think the problem is everyone's right. As far as what you said,
well, there's no smoking gun for one issue. That's obviously going to be a compounded factor of a bunch, but I mean, still,
But one more, I think, behind the scenes sort of look. I think Ray is on target. One of the
stay on target.
Stay on target. I to sort of use one of those stupid buzzwords, and I just lost the buzzword. Never mind.
Use the buzzword.
Use the buzzword. Use the buzzword. Use the buzzword for Luke. No, I'm trying so hard, but literally just skip my. Okay, synergy. No, you have all these different lines going out. The lack of advertising, to your point, the lack of ticket sales. Ticket sales is a big. Matt Damon, was it last week or 2 weeks ago, talked about how
it always comes back to Matt Damon.
It always comes back to Matt Damon, and I haven't even been with the hooker.
I know
the Blu-rays, like DVDs and VHS sales, like those things in the past.
A Blu-ray.
Yeah, there. Look at you.
Visual joke for those of you who are listening.
Oh, please, no one.
Which it's nobody, but
no one's listening. No one's listening.
No one's listening.
Well,
but like that was actually one of the big things. Like he was talking about, the problem with the streaming services is that now people don't buy Blu-rays. They don't buy, the VHS. Like that is where a lot of things made their money, right?
Mm.
And like the question was, why don't we see these smaller independent gem sort of a Goodwill Hunting, right? And his whole point is you could do some of these more risky films because you knew you could make it up with the VHS and then eventually Blu-ray sales down the line.
You skipped a few generations going from VHS straight to Blu-ray, my friend.
I know, but we all know, we were all there. We saw the transition.
No, actually, some of our listeners weren't all there, Jason, but it's okay.
Sorry, VHS, Laserdisc, DVD, Blu-ray.
There we go.
There we go.
The Laserdisc
really, now
that was sort of now 4K. But anyway, the point is
streaming. Yeah.
But so the problem is that
actually 8K's on the horizon. It's already here in some instances, but not something that us mere mortals could afford. Well, Ray can, but you and I can't, Jason.
No.
Speaking of, did you know the prop for Han Solo in the original Star Wars trilogy just sold for $1 million?
So where are you going to display it?
See where you're going to display it.
I'm thinking about behind me. I'm not quite sure yet. Anyway, go ahead. Continue.
Anyway, so yeah, I mean, so I think that's definitely a part of it. Is this whole switch to streaming actually has really cut into the amount of income that's coming in.
I hadn't considered that.
And here's the other part. But hold on, but here's the other.
I'm not saying it's the entirety, Ray.
No, it's not. No, I just said that's definitely a bigger slice.
It's a contributing factor. I think Jason's right. It is a contributing factor.
And here's the one thing I think none of us take into consideration: the cost of actually running a streaming service is vastly more significant than we realize, because we're like, well, it's just a thing. It's a thing. Netflix is, that stuff's really expensive. I can't say.
Yeah, everybody's got to pay all that money to Jeff Bezos for their AWS servers that run the entire entirety of the internet of the world, dude. It's not just a nation.
It's worldwide.
AWS is the leading server for all of this, even for what. Right now.
Yeah. I love.
Allow me to say how much Jeff Bezos, as much as these other two cretins may not appreciate all that you do for us, I appreciate you, my digital overlord.
Did you see the meme photo of him? Because Bezos had posted somewhere, he was like, "Thanks so much to such and such company for letting me take a ride in their giant robot." And he's in the giant, and it's a giant robot, and he's sitting in the cockpit, and he's like leaning and smiling. He's got a black shirt on with red 5-point harness, and they put it next to Lex Luthor in his giant thing, but he's wearing a red shirt with a black 5-point harness. I was like, that's it.
Yeah.
So then what is that? Yeah. Who does
He's gone full Lex Luthor for a while.
If he's Lex, who's Elon Musk?
He's the other Lex Luthor.
He's got too much hair for that.
He's got to be the Joker.
He's 90s Lex Luthor.
Is he the Joker?
He can't be the Joker. He's crazy. he's erratic enough to be it, but I don't think he has that. He's still not like doesn't do it that way.
Well,
see, the problem is like Jeff Bezos went full Lex Luthor. I think Elon Musk is more of a Obadiah Stane. That's who he is. Elon Musk is Obadiah Stane.
No.
Or if you, Stag Industries, if we want to keep it DC, you know, since we're big fans of tamales. I think he could be Stag.
Norman Osborn.
Let's
go to
there
Marvel.
You go.
Elon Musk is Norman Osborn.
I can see Norman Osborn. Yeah, sure. Yeah, sure. I can see that. He's already developed his own flamethrower. He just needs to put it onto a flying, you know.
Yeah, I mean, let's face it. If we actually see him on like some flying hoverboard that can shoot grenades, would any of us be surprised?
No, not at all.
Would we be like, that seems legit?
Not at all. And I mean, he would do it all with the Tesla name would be all over it, and it's all, you know, clean burning energy and clean. So yeah, I could see it.
Yeah,
I can see it.
Clean. Yeah. Yeah. It's renewable. Anyway,
so the bottom line is
bottom line is a lot of this has been very disruptive. This was the buzzword I want to use. Disruptive to the industry. Disruptive to the industry.
Right.
So again, yes, the pandemic was the thing, but honestly, the streaming services have actually cut off a lot of revenue that they traditionally had, and so they because there's different costs. I think that is why this is happening, and they're trying to figure this shit out.
So, I think if Netflix, Disney, hell, Paramount Plus, I think if they've got it already figured out, what's up, DC? What's up, Warner Brothers Discovery? Like, why are we not? If you're following this platform over here of mimicking Kevin Feige for your DC properties, then why aren't you mimicking Disney for their streaming or Netflix for their streaming? I don't think it's a good excuse for them. At the end of the day,
I haven't. See, listen, I mean, I understand that. Like, so at HBO, Discovery Plus, Discovery bought HBO, and I guess they're also Warner Brothers, right? The owners now. Is that the right? Okay. HBO was doing its own thing before it got bought out by Discovery, so it's too early and too soon to say that. Come on, get on it. Do you know what I mean? Warner Brothers has nothing to do with Warner Brothers has nothing to do with that fact at this point, up until recently when they acquired that property. And I've seen nothing wrong with HBO Max. Their streaming has been fine, in my opinion. I actually think it's about to get worse.
Yeah, I do
because they're going to lose their independent, that division. They're not going to lose it per se, but they're going to like downsize and combine. I think that lack of revenue for a dedicated department that writes and works for the streaming portion is going to hinder it as a whole. It is. There's no way around that. It has to.
But to be fair, merge your writers room. If you have one separate for HBO proper on, cable or streaming, whatever, and then you have a writer's room for HBO Max, I kind of get that point. Like, why is that not combined?
Yeah, I kind of see it. It's just it's like car companies. They have a racing division for the racers, and they have a commercial division for what they put out. They're not going to have the two working on the same properties because it's completely different. You're not going to get your Formula One race car team building your Kia Sportage. It's just not going to happen. They're not doing that.
Be a lot cooler if you did, though.
Be a lot cooler if you did. Yeah.
But again, so here's the problem. Both of those divisions make money.
Well, that in theory.
But do they?
Yeah.
But do they really?
Look, F1. Any F1 team is typically making money, no matter what you say. Now there are some outliers that are losing some bits. Obviously, like McLaren struggles. Petronas struggles a little bit. They struggle. They absolutely struggle. But they still have a lot of it is investors from billionaires who are sinking that money into it because it's a passion project for them. It's a hobby. They're making their money from other things like Jeff Bezos, right? They're siphoning whatever they can off of him to funnel that into that. So it's different. But yeah, Jason's right. They are making money elsewhere, and then that allows them to do these projects.
Right. Well, and here's the other thing, though, and this is actually another real big point. One of the reasons for the racing divisions is that the things they come up with there often highly influence and advance what they can do in the commercial property.
They can innovate. That's true. It's like the military. They innovate technology that we see trickles down to us in the civilian world eventually for some type of high-speed processors or touchscreens and all the other kind of stuff that we see on a technological basis.
Satellites,
heating and cooling, communications, all that kinds of stuff.
Yeah, the things that make our lives better. So it's like, and again, racing has been the number one thing to push car safety with tires. I mean, that's
so you're saying Discovery Warner Bros. Is going to push safety in viewing. I am so glad now that when I stream something, I will feel safe in my bubble.
Well, yeah, now you don't have to worry about a hard ride into a wall or anything. It's just you're going to be traveling smoothly along that oval with no stops.
Yep.
Yeah. That took a hard left. She-Hulk.
Speaking of hard rights.
Hitting the wall.
So
y'all started last.
No, I just meant the abrupt change in.
Yeah,
I know.
I know what you meant.
Okay. We know.
Yeah. We know.
So I wasn't on the show last time. Thankfully,
yeah, you were.
Well, you did. Towards the very end.
You were on the show for like 20 minutes, dude.
No. We just kept going. Needless to say, shut up, Sean. Y'all had like an hour and a half, 20 minutes. I wasn't on the show that much.
We did have an hour and a half. We were about to sign off when somebody joined the show and kept us going for like another 20 minutes.
Don't know what you're talking about. It's not important.
All right.
Yeah, the portion of She-Hulk though that I wasn't able to really talk on. So let me start with this. Yes or no? Just really quick. Yes or no? Jason?
Yes. What?
You like the show? Yes or no?
Here's the problem. No.
No. It's a yes or no, Jason. We'll get into. Okay. Thank you, Sean.
You can qualify it afterwards.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yes or no? No.
Sean, yes.
Yes.
I'm actually gonna go right smack in the middle with or.
Son of a no! You said yes or no.
I did say yes or no.
There's no or.
No.
Yes.
You will come up with
it's a yes/no question.
I am gonna say, especially after episode 3, I'm gonna go no.
Okay.
Okay. Now, can we get to the nuance?
Oh yeah, that's the point.
Yeah.
Well, is it though with this show meal?
Shut up, schmuck. Sean, kick it off. What reasons why you like the show?
Yeah, you like the show, please.
So, it's different than the other shows that Marvel has put out. I mean, I know that somebody's going to draw some similarities to a few other comedic moments. It's more comedy than it is, in my opinion, than it is any type of action show. But it's also more drama than it is any type of action show in the sense that it feels like a time sitcom, in my opinion. This could be, a How I Met Your Mother, or one of those shows, like just something smack dab in the middle of prime time that you might watch.
Yeah.
It's early. We've only seen 3 episodes. I think the total is an 8 count or a 10 count. What is it?
9 count, I think.
Is a 9 count? Okay, so we've seen a third. That means we got 2/3 left to see where this thing's going to go. They threw out a little bit of controversy in this latest one, but there has been too much controversy leading up to this. This is a story about her growing to herself as both people, just as much as Hulk was, right? We just didn't see that in Hulk quite as much as this show is focusing on her journey as a lawyer, as a woman, as Hulk. There's many different aspects to this that are more or less a psychological and a mind thing, right? And being okay with yourself and learning how to be confident and how to, it's almost a self-help sort of situation. And that's a prime time comedy thing. Like that's a very, very much a primetime show comedy situation. Outside of that, I mean, people might complain about, people are going to complain about the animation and the quality of the CGI. And I'm like, okay, fair enough. If you want to pick a bone there, you can. But also this is running on a smaller budget than some of the other big blockbuster movies that Disney would do. I personally like Tatiana Maslany for other Orphan Black that she was in. I absolutely love that series. And there was something else that I remember her from. Perry Mason, which was on HBO Max. If you hadn't seen
I forgot about that. I need to watch it.
I did forget about that.
Dude, you want to go to a dark place? Watch that. That's a dark. No. I'm saying, like, don't watch it with the kids. It's
I get
disturbingly dark.
Yeah. So because it's Perry Mason when he was younger, right?
It's before he became the detective Perry Mason, or the detective / lawyer, because Perry Mason did a bit of both.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's before that. So this is him finding himself as Perry Mason. Anyways, I liked it, and I liked it for all those reasons, and I'm curious to see where it goes. Also, it's a stupid fun thing that I can enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
I don't give a shit. Like I just want to turn it on and have a good time. And the last episode, the end of it, made me laugh. And if there's anything that is in this world that can make me laugh,
the end of the show or the end credit,
the scenes, the end scenes, the end scenes, like, and not just like there was the courtroom scene that made me laugh, where she's defending Abomination, you know what I mean, or she's in there making a point for something, I can't remember what it was. Anyways, and then that subsequent scene, end credit scene, based off of her interaction in that one as well. So yeah, it makes me laugh. This world sucks sometimes, and I think comedy is highly underrated. I love comedy, and I'm not here to make a case about the show being good or bad. I'm just here to say why I like it. Not trying to change anybody's opinion about it. That's it.
Yeah,
agreed. Jason, and keep in mind, Sean kept it to 2 minutes.
Was it only 2 minutes?
Only 2 minutes.
Okay. I believe I was correct when I said it was just Ally McBeal with superpowers. I rest my case.
Okay.
Like again, I'm not even saying it's bad. I'm just okay. It's just it's not for me.
It's funny you mentioned the Ally McBeal, because I mean, hello again, primetime dramedy show. That's what this is. So
that's what it is. Okay. I mean, I get it. But guess what?
I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying we have the same opinion. It's just it shows the difference in what each person likes.
Yeah, that's
you're not wrong saying that you think it's bad because it's not your cup of tea, and I'm not wrong saying that I think it's right because it's not something you enjoy. You know what I mean? It's just a difference in opinion.
That's it. And and guess what? Neither of us is going to do a drag down knockout about it, because here's everyone's like, so you hate it? No, I can't even draw up emotions for the show. Like, I'm sorry. I can just say, look, I don't find it funny. I'm out. That's it. I'm cool.
Yeah.
Like,
okay.
Your humor and what you consider humor your humor is different than ours. Actually, I'll tell you, and I don't mean this as an insult, Jason. Your humor is different than a lot of people.
Yeah.
It's not the norm. So I know what it takes to make you enjoy and laugh and everything else.
Yeah. I get it. Oh, did he freeze?
He
whereas
froze.
Times where you're like,
he froze.
He froze. Look at that.
He's still frozen.
He's still frozen.
Oh, it feels so good Ray. not to be in this situation right now.
I know.
Oh, look at that. That was on my side.
Yeah.
Yeah, there it is. There he goes.
He's back
now.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
Sean, you see why we enjoyed that so much?
Yes, I finally get the opportunity to see it.
Yeah.
Listen, I already know why you enjoy it. I've watched it's back just to see what stupid face I'm making. And I enjoy it too. I'm like, oh, that was a good one.
I love the fact that you said that and it froze there for a bit.
Perfect.
And it was like, but yeah, I that's my whole thing too. Is like, so I get I know where Jason's sense of humor is.
Yeah.
And I know where mine's at. And so my thing is, I actually enjoyed the first 2 episodes. I really did. This third one, I was okay with. I don't think I might not. No, I know I didn't find it as funny as you did, Sean. But that's not. I'm still in it, right? And to go back and correct something that I said, sorry, you were right. It's actually 10 episodes. It's got a lot of room for growth. It's got a lot of, where are we going to go? What are we going to do?
Yeah, I got seven more episodes to see what's going to happen. If it's 10, you got 7 more.
Yeah, and I do appreciate the fact that they called out their own shit. At the very beginning of the episode where she stops, she goes, I know what you're thinking. It's one of those shows where it's cameos everywhere. And she was like, and it's not. Well, except for Bruce. Well, and Emil. And then on this shit. You know what? It's a good show.
Goes, it's still about
Wong. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, again, I see where the humor is. The problem is just, I'm like, I'm sorry. It's like, oh, this is amusing.
Yeah, it's like whenever it's like whenever Jason does comedy on this show. We understand what he's going for. I get you, Jason. So, anyway. Again, I didn't enjoy this episode as much as I enjoyed the first 2. Didn't care for I got it brought a smile to my face, but I wasn't chuckling over the end credit scene. But again, it's like I'm going to be tuning in next week. It doesn't matter. Like I still like the show enough that one episode or whatever is not going to. You know what? It's not what you call it from Netflix, Jessica Jones. So I'm in.
Okay,
I will.
That's high praised.
To play devil's advocate to you though, Ray, on this particular episode. I mean, unless they're going to go somewhere with Abomination and take Tim Roth and Abomination forward to be the like a major bad guy or something to that effect in later episodes, then for all intents and purposes, I think this is one of your Jessica Jones episodes that you hated so much, where it has no bearing in a way.
Which is probably why I didn't care for this episode.
And that's agreed. I think that's it. Well said. I think that's why you didn't really care for this particular episode very much, is because, there's this would be, if you will, depending on how the series is going to go, this could be your Monster of the Week episode from any of the X-Files shows, right?
That's fair. Yeah, that's fair.
If X-Files only followed the narrative, the overarching narrative, it would have been no more than 2 seasons long, maybe only 1, to be completely fair and honest with everybody.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And
same with Buffy.
Same with Buffy. Exactly. Yeah. So, and yet these things spanned, several seasons because they have to drag. Well, they don't have to, but they drag them out because they can. And if they have some stories to tell with them, they do. Yeah. And I think that's what this episode was. It's a, well, again, who knows? We could see where it goes later. It might turn out to be that Abomination plays a bigger part in this. We'll just have to see.
Blonsky's not going to play a bigger part in this show.
Oh yeah.
They have announced Thunderbolts. That's where you'll see Blonsky.
That's where
again.
So here's the thing. Okay, so 2 points.
Okay.
To Sean, right? The writer for this even said that she had this great idea on how to really have the show sort of be around Blonsky and all of that, like his trial. And she said, but we don't know how to write courtroom dramas, so they changed the entire concept. I'm like,
good.
No, okay. Good. Yeah. I mean, first of all, good for her for recognizing what she, that she has. She's like, we're not going to be able to do that well, so let's do this. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
Something that some DC art directors would probably do well to know. But know your strengths and weaknesses. But to raise, to raise point. Let me play devil's advocate. I can see why people like the show, right? It is like Sean said. If you shut your, it's one of those. If you shut your brain off,
I never said shut your brain off.
Yeah. Well, Ray did.
Said that.
Ray did.
I said that. Yeah.
No. I mean, for this particular show, I never said that.
I know. No.
But
Ray, but I get it. I understand why people would find it funny. I don't. But I get Ray's point of saying. It's sort of the broader point. What have we said about a lot of these shows, right? With the exception of Ms. Marvel, and I forget which other one, but even if you throw in the Star Wars shows, we're just forgetting about Boba Fett entirely. That didn't happen. We've all said almost all of these shows would have been, with the exception of WandaVision and maybe Ms. Marvel, they would have been better as 2.5-hour movies. Right?
I don't think every single one. I know we've raised that possibility for a few, but I honestly don't think that. And I mean, it not on every single one. I do think there's a possibility for maybe 1 or 2 that could have been done better.
Winter Soldier, Falcon Winter Soldier was, I think we said was fine with us.
Let Sean finish.
I mean,
never let me finish.
He's right though. That was probably one of the ones I think could have been done better at movie. That one to me feels like it would have played out in a cinematic format better than this episodic bit. But it would have been, I don't know, it would have just been another, I mean, much like the show itself. Look, it would have just been another Captain America-esque movie. And that's the thing is, yes, we're going on different characters. Yes, we're taking these journeys with these new or other alternate characters, these other alternate storylines. But it all boils down to the same thing that a lot of people complain about with comic books and or movies that are franchised or a series that runs for a long time. It's the same story. And I've heard, I mean, Genesis would bring this up, and I know he'd be saying the same thing. It's like, these are all the same stories, just with the different people. It is. And so when you do the same story this many times, it's going to get to a point where you're like, you're no longer really invested in it.
Yeah.
I am honestly, I mean, even with the movies that they're coming out right now with Marvel, I'm definitely not as invested as I was when it was each one had to play off the other.
Yeah.
Marvel's not going to capture that lightning in a bottle again. That was a one-time thing. That's not going to happen again for another 30 years, 40 years. We might be dead by the time this happens again.
Yeah.
That was a phenomenal movie event and media event, and I just don't think we're going to see that again. So it's good for what it was, and that's perfect. But these ones coming along now, we have so much invested in what built up to this that people take it, they pour all their hopes and blend and so when it lets them down for what it is or isn't, it makes them go, I don't like this, and man, it's like, guys, just look. That's why I say it's not that big of a deal. You either like it, you don't. And if you don't like it, good, go find something else you do like. But don't.
Yeah, I'm gonna go watch Perry Mason.
Yeah, don't put all your stock in this because it's getting tired. This wasn't going to be a phenomenal. I just didn't think this isn't going to be an Emmy award-winning series.
It's a formula that Marvel and Disney have packed now. They have it down. They don't want to stray from that formula.
It's because it's working.
And I don't blame them because they're still getting
worked,
it's getting them money. You know, I think once it starts costing them money, that'll be a different story. But I mean,
sooner or later, this becomes another Jerry Bruckheimer experiment, or a Transformers. It's going to become it's becoming that again. Where you're like, okay, great, we've seen this time and time again. You got to come up with something else.
Yeah.
Speaking of coming up with something else.
Okay.
To the main point of today's show. So, gentlemen, did we all see Elvis?
I did. Yes. I watched it last night.
Okay.
What a refresher from a superhero movie.
Yes. Okay. Sorry. Yeah. I like it. No, that's a great way of.
But yet somehow did the best version of the Captain Marvel family Shazam family in 2 minutes or less.
Hey man, Elvis was, all about that glitz and that glam. TCB, man. TCB.
Can we take a moment to appreciate just how awesome Austin Butler was in this role?
Yes. Yeah.
He did a really good job.
If he doesn't even get an Oscar, if he doesn't get an Oscar nod for this, I don't care if he wins. But if he doesn't get it, then
a nod. I could see a nod for it. Yeah. I could see a nod for it. I believed the entire time that he was Elvis Presley. I never had his character was. He did a great job. I never had to suspend my disbelief with anything he did as far as Elvis was.
So much so that the last scene, I couldn't tell if they were using stock footage. Or if that was him.
Yes.
No, I know. And then, I mean, you could see a moment like it took, but I'm with you. It took me a second when they cut away to like the crowd or something, and then they come back and it's the actual last footage of Elvis on stage singing. And I thought, wait a minute. I was like, is it still Elvis? Like you really had to stop and you go, okay, there he is.
Yeah, there's that moment where you're like, wait, is that the real Elvis, or are they just recreating this? Because they did a lot of stuff where they just recreated it, and you're like,
some of it.
Throughout the whole movie, you're like, wait, they recreated some stuff that was actually real, and you're like, was that him, or was it the real stuff? So I mean, he's
and one more feather in his cap here, and I think it's very important to mention this is like, there's no end credit scenes, but I end up watching end credit scenes because I've been watching them for years anyways, right? Yeah. Every time my mom and I would go to the movies for whatever reason, we would end up just watching all the credits because, my mom, born and raised in California, big movie buff. So she would want to see who was producing, who was acting, who was like more than just that, right? She was always curious who directed this, who produced it. She's like, who was the cast assistant? Because she would go like, oh, that explains why this person were all supporting actors in this film because the caster uses those same actors every time that caster goes to all these other films. So she would look at that shit. But so I'm watching this, and when you get to the point where it's scrolling through the songs, by the way, the soundtrack on this is probably phenomenal, right?
Oh, yes.
That deserves 5 minutes by itself.
But so that and to that point, and this is where I was like, this is definitely a feather in Austin Butler's cap. In the soundtrack, they have the songs that they go through and list that are Elvis Presley's tunes, and it says performed by Austin Butler. They kept him and his song version on the soundtrack to this movie. And I mean, it's funny because there's a couple behind the scenes extras on HBO Max that you can watch. They're all 1 minute long except for one, which is 7 minutes. And in those little bits that you get to see, you hear about Austin Butler working with a vocal coach to learn how to sing like Elvis and to learn how to talk like Elvis. And he's talking to you in this interview, and he still sounds like Elvis. Because I think he's stuck in that accent when he's talking to you through these things. And man, I just can't get out of it, man. I'm in it. I'm stuck with it, and I can't stop. And he just keeps talking the whole
he seemed very dedicated to the role. But I mean, you can see it; it shows. I saw one when the movie first. I actually wanted to see it in theaters. Just didn't get a chance to. I watched
it would have been a good movie to see in theaters.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, there was a
and bold and glitzy as it was.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely. Like any Baz Luhrmann film. I mean, they're made to be viewed in a theater, so it's kind of a bummer that I didn't get to see it. But
there's a woman I follow on TikTok, and that's one of the things she said. She goes, "This is the reason that you go see films."
If you hadn't said on TikTok, I would have still believed you.
Yeah, it's so his. I was just in awe of his performance. I was in awe of two things. I
have misplaced my binoculars.
Oh, I've never misplaced my binoculars.
Anyway, when we saw what is it, Malik as Freddie Mercury in Bohemian Rhapsody, I thought there's no one else that's going to be able to portray someone that closely again. And boy, did Austin
never
Butler.
Say never, man.
Yeah. I just thought, man, how does someone develop a role so much so? And,
but look at Ray, the Ray Charles biopic that.
I stand by my statement that Malik still did a better job than
Jamie Foxx.
Jamie Foxx.
Yeah,
I don't know. I think Jamie Foxx did a great job.
Yeah,
in that role.
And he did, but it's Jamie Foxx. Here, both with Malik and then Butler, like you don't see the actor, you see the person that they're actually portraying. And that's the same thing with like Ali and Will Smith, right? I still saw Will Smith. It was hard to separate the two. Go ahead there, Sean.
The reason that is because Austin Butler is not a huge mega star like Jamie Foxx and like Will Smith.
Fair enough.
That's not because Smith and or Jamie Foxx didn't do a phenomenal job in the acting with their acting for that person. Austin Butler, what are you going to see him in? You're going to see him the Shannara Chronicles, which was on Amazon only, is Amazon Prime. And then he was in one other thing that I can't remember, but I remember watching it go like, hey, that's Austin Butler from the Shannara Chronicles. Which again, I think he might be bigger in Australia because the two things that I saw him in were both Australian filmed properties, as akin was this movie. This was filmed in Australia. Graceland was built and filmed in Australia. This entire movie is an Australian movie, just like, yes, it is. You watch.
I didn't know that, yeah.
I just pulled it up. Seeing someone from Yoga Hosers come in and do an Academy Award-winning potential film.
Yoga Hosers.
Not to slam Kevin Smith. I'm just saying Yoga Hosers.
I don't know. I haven't looked into Austin Butler very much, so I don't know if he is. He might be from California. I have no clue. All I know is that this was filmed in Australia because they even had Stranger Things' brother in the movie. He was one of the promoters. That's who that
was. Thank you.
He's the dead brother from Stranger Things who died. He got possessed. He was season 3. I can't remember his name.
Yeah. I know who you're talking about.
I kept thinking, why does he look so familiar?
And Ursula called it out. She goes, that's why his hair color was lighter in season 4 of Stranger Things, because he did a cameo in Stranger Things, but it even says he didn't film that cameo with everybody else. He filmed it in Australia because he was doing this movie when they filmed it at the time. So his hair is different, and that's why he looks a little off in the cameos in season 4. was because he was filming this movie at the same time they had him do these cameos. So yeah, this was the movie is big and bold and phenomenal. And honestly, I'm going to say the worst part about this movie was Tom Hanks's accent.
Yes.
I also will tell you, I am so glad they played him up as he never saw himself as the villain.
Yeah.
Perspective is a very big thing.
Loved it. But just every time it was just so slimy watching him act.
Yeah.
And you legitimately felt, and I was telling Jason this a little bit ago. I've always loved music from Elvis. I've always appreciated the music from Elvis. Got a couple albums of Elvis.
Oh yeah.
But I did not know the background for Elvis. And so seeing it unfold this way and just knowing, I was like, oh my God. And then they get to the end point where they're talking about, when he was finally, post-death, they're like, yeah, he was skimming money, scamming everything he could possibly be stealing from Elvis's estate. And I was like, wow, this guy was a piece of shit. I'm like, at the end of the day, it was just like horrible.
He was a grifter, man. He was a straight up grifter.
He was a snowman.
Which
I love that word throughout the whole movie.
Yeah, he points that. He's like, this is like and the worst part is he's like, of course I'm the snowman. All of this, like his perspective is life is a grift.
Yeah.
All of it's like, he's like, it's all the carnival.
Yeah.
And the probably the worst part of the whole story, because I was actually talking to Ray about this last night. Again, I knew a lot of this stuff, but I didn't know how bad the Colonel was and all this. But it's like Elvis was an actual artist who cared. Like he really wanted to. He was trying to be an artist. He wanted to do that, and but to his point, and I think it's absolutely accurate. We would not have Elvis had we not had the Colonel. It would have been a very different scenario, I think, at the end of it.
It really would have. You're right. I mean, it's like it's the worst. It's a Bonnie and Clyde situation. It's the worst combination for these two people to have met each other and did what they did. But it's also the best thing that could have happened to them because they found each other and they were able to do these things.
Right.
Motives of one person versus the other notwithstanding, you wouldn't have had this sort of amazingly over the top situation with Elvis as he was. At least I don't think you would. Now, the movie, and again, it's got to take this for what it's worth, right?
Right.
This is a movie, and the facts could be distorted and or changed a little bit to fit the situation.
Obviously. Yeah.
And like Ray, I didn't know half of this story.
Yeah.
Leading up to it, my dad probably did. I wish I'd talked to him a little bit more about this because this was they presented it in such a fascinating set of circumstances, but or not in a fascinating way, right? But those guys that he hit up in Hollywood, her older brother, Max's older brother, and the other dude, they seemed to genuinely get Elvis and get what needed to put him back on the radar and get him back on track to be Elvis. It's just a shame that Elvis went to trust the Colonel again through this, because the Colonel saw him slipping away and was like, I need to get this guy back under my thumb. And he gave him just enough leeway to get out there, but also steered him to get out there and then kept him where he was again and smothered the dude till he died.
It was absolutely heartbreaking to see how he manipulated everything from his mom's death to not going international. But then still promising him international. Like, I thought that was because it wasn't a bad thing. I mean, he's still, again, 1.3 billion viewers.
The satellite bit.
Perform. Like, he was still, even though he was a complete waste of a person, he was still giving the Colonel. He was still giving him what he desired, what he wanted. Like, it was very much I'm still going to give it to you. And granted, at the end of the day, it was because it gets him more money. But he never lied to Elvis. He just twisted the truth enough to get him to sympathize with his side of the story.
So he politicized it.
Very much so. Yeah. Right.
Like all good con men.
Like all good politicians do. You spin it the way you need to get the belief, no matter what side it is. You spin it the way you need to get the person's in line with what you want to do, right? And you're right. It was very well said. I mean, I think the Colonel did genuinely care about him, but only as far as he needed to.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's a good way of phrasing it. And Lisa Marie Presley came out and said, she said, this is the first movie to get it right.
Yeah. So. Well, I'll tell you,
side note, really wild to be watching this movie, and I know it's a history thing and whatever, and of course they're not the same actors, but it makes me, I'm sitting here watching this going, man, I remember Naked Gun with Leslie Nielsen and Lisa Marie and Presley. Like, I'm like, oh, that's so weird. Okay, so sorry.
But also remembering, wow, she hooked up with Michael for a bit.
Oh yeah, well that's
but
again, understanding the similarities now happened.
Yeah, now I get it.
You see that background, you're like, okay,
this makes sense.
Big over the top father, dude who's all over the place with his passion and his enthusiasm for these things, and it's like Michael Jackson was the same way, So.
I will say this. Flashbacks to You Were Not Alone. Thanks.
Okay. What's up, Kim?
I will say though, like on top of the acting being superb, like I can't remember who played Marie, whatever the mother Presley, Priscilla. I can't remember who played Priscilla, but that scene when they meet for the first time and they're kissing each other, you actually feel like you're watching that first kiss. Like they both kind of.
They really sold that, man.
Yeah, I was wow,
they really sold that.
That relationship, it was on point for it.
And what I have to say of that is, though, again, this is such a good. This speaks to Baz Luhrmann's ability as a director and his. I mean, he wrote and directed this thing with co-writers, co-producers.
Right. Yeah.
His name is all over this bit, like anything he does, and he uses that.
Yes, Kim, you do.
You need to, Kim. It's really
not
good.
just for this episode, just because it's a good movie. Like
it's a good movie,
legitimately good movie. Yeah,
and it's a nice break from superhero movies and or crazy fantastic movies. So it's nice to have something interesting that's not just She-Hulk or something.
But we won't spoil it for you, and I won't tell you if the protagonist dies.
We don't want to tell you about the ending. No. We're gonna let you watch it yourself, of course.
Yeah,
of course.
We're not gonna have another Titanic thing where you go in and someone's like, "Oh, you do know it sinks at the end." You're like, "What?"
Oh, thanks a lot.
Oh, I found out that the reason Jack couldn't stay on the door, even though there was enough room, was because at the time Rose was 26. So,
oh, gotcha. Yeah, I understood.
But so
that makes so much more sense now.
Baz Luhrmann does an amazing job of using using the music to accentuate the moments.
Can we talk about the music?
It was phenomenal. The scene where the Colonel is speaking with the casino owner at the International, sitting in the booth, right?
Hold on, I'm putting that one up.
That's good.
That's absolutely true. But back to the music.
But the scene where he's writing on the napkins and it's in the hotel.
Oh, with Caught in the Trap.
Yeah,
dude, just like chills listening to one. Well, actually, that's the other thing they said. Part of the reason you couldn't really tell that it was or wasn't Austin Butler singing all the time was they used Austin Butler's voice for the early young Elvis. So everything that was young Elvis, Austin Butler sang all in his own.
Yep.
Everything that is older Elvis, getting into his later performances, they blended old Elvis and Butler over the top of each other, singing together. So
gotcha.
It helps lend that older voice to it that he didn't have because he's not old enough to do that. You can't get that older voice like that.
No, you can't.
But yeah, the use of that song, like the placement of these songs was so deliberate and so well done.
And the fact that it wasn't always Elvis or Butler, that it was blended with today's artists.
Yes.
I did not think that was going to work. Yeah. I told Jason when I was watching it, I was like, that none of that should have worked. Mm-mm. When you're talking about a movie focused on an artist, you're like, you don't blend them with other artists. But yet every time they did it in this movie,
it worked.
Like I went and downloaded the soundtrack right after. Actually, probably about the first hour, and I went and downloaded the soundtrack because I was like, this is incredible.
You know, those moments when he stops and he's trying to find himself again, and he's going back to Memphis, and he's going back to the street, and he's that one portion, they did such a good blend
with
of like
it was the In the Ghetto mixed with I can't remember the rapper's name.
Yeah.
That was fantastic.
It was just phenomenal. And
yeah,
again, I don't think I've ever heard of a time where rappers have used snippets from Elvis's work. I don't think, I cannot recall, me personally, there may be, but before this movie I cannot recall any any cuts from Elvis music being used in rap songs. But the way they did it on this movie,
I'm sure it's out there somewhere.
And I'm sure it is somewhere. Well, now it definitely is now, right?
Yeah. Well, part of that may just be licensing. There was a remix done with some Elvis songs done like in the late 90s, early 2000s for some movies. But like when one of the ones that Ray and I were hooked on last night was trying to figure out Play House.
Oh my God!
I want to play house. Where
baby, let's play house.
Baby, let's play house. Yeah, and like towards those last 2/3 is separated by this amazing guitar riff. Like we know where this know this song, and it's Gary
Clark Jr.
Gary Clark Jr.
The third, because he was his take on the Beatles song "Come Together." You could tell he blended it, and I was like, it's got to be Gary Clark Jr. And it was so much so that I actually ended up looking it up. Well, duh, because Gary Clark Jr. is in the movie. So
who did he play? I forgot.
He played one of the oh my God, it was one of the club members. Whenever he would go into Memphis proper. But I mean, just like everything.
I'm gonna have to go back and watch it now because I didn't catch him. I didn't see that.
I wouldn't recognize it. I wouldn't recognize him on sight.
I was so impressed by that version of it that it was. I had to go back and look it up because
by the way, it also made me chuckle because like we were watching the credits, actually it wasn't even the credits yet. It was that ending scenes blend montage flashback of like the trippy life of Elvis that they just covered, right? As they put everything together, and you see him on with Austin doing the full bends up on his toes, Pee Wee Herman style, like. Falling all the way backwards sort of situation. It was that concert. I looked at my wife. I was like, some serious My Chemical Romance vibes off of them dressed in that black on that stage for that show.
I'll let you know in about 3 weeks on that, Sean.
No, please don't, because I don't care for My Chemical Romance.
I know you don't.
I just had to make a joke about the fact that he was wearing the eyeliner. And I also loved that setup. I loved that early hearing about him coming up and doing this thing that everybody thought was so scandalous. And they were like, he's the
first concert where he's got the eyeliner.
And that was it. The guy said, this guy, when the Colonel says, I cannot stress how strange he looked to us. And he's not just me, he's like to everyone. He's wearing a big oversized pink zoot suit, with eyeliner on and
makeup,
his hair in a big coif and everything. And they're looking at him, and the guy in the audience says, get out of here, you fairy, or whatever.
Yeah.
And then he just launches into his music. Well, not his music. Sorry, let me rephrase.
That whole thing
into music.
Yeah.
And that somebody else
as sung by Austin Butler.
As sung by Austin Butler. Which they didn't really touch on very much, by the way. That was the one thing I was like, I know there was a bunch of outrage, as there always is, about Elvis Presley bringing black music to white people. And at the time, that was the truth, right? That's what happened. He brought a lot of rhythm and blues and soul and stuff that white people wouldn't listen to because of the segregation. Yeah. But what I didn't realize, and what I didn't appreciate at the time, was the fact that Elvis grew up around that. Being raised in Memphis, being raised in that culture. It's like, okay, now I understand why you did it. But the sad fact of it was the only reason it was able to get in front of anybody who was white is because he was white. Yeah, right. That sucks.
And they call that up very specifically when he says, when
BB King is talking.
Yeah. Well, no. They call it very specific. Well, they do that too. But at the very beginning of the film, when Roy Clark Jr. is playing it, and they're talking about it, and he goes, "Oh no, this guy's white," because he was like, "They're not going to let some black kid play at the hayride."
The very beginning, they're like, "We're not going to let a black man host the hayride." Yeah, exactly.
And the colonel,
no, he's white,
and they were astounded by that, and they all kind of they look at each other like this is a white boy singing these songs. Yeah.
And the colonel says he's white. Like that's, and it's like that was that again. They play, but again,
that was his salacious, "You're not supposed to like it" moment.
Yes.
That was the point. I mean, again, set that up very well from the colonel's perspective early on, is that giving people enjoyment on watching something they think to themselves they're probably not supposed to like, which is the basis of any reason any person from religion strays from religion.
Yeah, right. Yep. But that's also the thing, though, is where they show him.
And also, by the way, the performance Jason's talking about, they highlight that very well.
Yeah, which again, because it's Baz Luhrmann, it's way over the top.
They could tell those girls were having thoughts they shouldn't be having.
Yeah.
So, but I do agree with that, and I also like the fact that they showed it was, when you talk about that, it was like, well, that's where he grew up at. That was his neighborhood, so he was very much caught in the middle of both races, because one
was poverty-stricken white kid.
Yeah. And so that was the other thing, and I do like the fact that they did kind of point out, it was like, it wasn't that he was stealing from, it's just that's what he grew up in, and that he had inspiration from there.
That's a fantastic point. Is it's like, and I agree with you there. Is I was I didn't know that, so I had no idea that was his upbringing, and so it shines a light on it. And to me, it's like, like you said, it makes much more sense now, is that he grew up around it and he loved it and he saw what it was, but it also,
because he was a part of it. I mean,
he was a part of it, but that's my point. The broader point to this is
he was the original Eminem.
No,
Elvis was the real Slim Shady.
The privilege afforded to somebody separates them from what can be something amazing.
Yeah, for sure.
And that was the point. Like, he was just, it's like that sense of entitlement, that sense of I'm better than you, it cuts you off to everything. And Elvis was not a I'm better than you person. He didn't have that sense of, he didn't understand racism like, I say understand. He obviously wasn't a racist in theory, is from what I understand in this movie, like a bunch of other white people at the time were, because he was like, well, poverty makes equals of us all. So what's the difference? We're all on the same page here, so it doesn't matter. And so he grew up with that, honestly, with that privilege, being able to not have to deal with, or not having to try to figure out how to not be racist.
Well,
or fighting that racism.
So that's, if you've ever listened to Polk Salad Annie, you understand how poor he grew up, right? I mean, that's one of those things that, like, most people don't get what Polk Salad Annie is about.
Never heard that song before.
Which is,
I'll have to go back and I'm gonna have to go back and listen to it.
And that's sort of a big thing about this. And again, we were talking about this last night. I knew all of this growing up because, again, my dad, so I knew the stories. I knew when people were like, he didn't steal. That's where he came from. But what I had never really thought about before was how it's played, right? It's always been addressed in a lot of the things they've done with Elvis, but they never flat out said, they never presented him being in the black community the way they did, right? It's like, I knew the controversy. I knew how, like, again, the song In the Ghetto, if you've ever seen him perform that song, that is a heartfelt song. And to your point, it comes because he knows what that life is like.
He grew up in the ghetto. That's the thing, is he's not singing it because he's appropriating it. He's singing it because he knew it.
That's where his life.
It's not the white. He's not playing the white savior. He's like, no,
he's not playing the white savior.
Don't understand what
he's
this is.
That's what I grew up in. Again, this really made me realize that the only reason, the only reason this music and what he played was in front of white folks was because he was white. That's it. That's it. If he If he
Which
hadn't
BB
been,
King calls out.
Oh yeah, he says
and
that
again,
specifically.
BB King says the same thing because he's like, man,
Yeah.
he says something to BB King along the lines of, man, I just want to play this music, and if I do it, they're going to arrest me. And he goes, they ain't going to arrest you. They're making too much money off of you. You're white. And he was like, I can't do it, but you can. And that was the thing. Like, I mean, BB King gave him his due on that. He's like, dude, do what you got to do, So,
yeah. No, I loved their interactions between him and BB King because that's also one of those. I will say I'd never thought about how they did come up together. Like I never put those two together.
I never knew that. I said
I
to
knew
my
he
wife,
knew them. Like I knew that they
that.
were all. I just didn't. Again, it's putting that together in my head because it's not really talked about.
Sorry, whenever Jason goes, I knew he knew them, but I didn't know he knew it. I was like, yeah, because we were not born yet, Jason.
Yeah. Well,
I'm gonna go ahead and throw that out there.
Yeah. However, the history is sort of my thing. It's like
that's right. You are a trained archaeologist.
I am a trained archaeologist. Jones. Yeah, Mr. Jones. Yeah, sometimes
gotta be a hot Dr. Jones.
And I never do. Anyway, now it's not the time for love. I always tell I always tell my short round, it's always time for love. When I'm on a dig. But no, it's a great movie. It's done well. And I have to give, when I realized, like, again, I'd heard how good the movie was. I'm like, okay, I'm prepared for this. What I did not.
Continue going.
Yeah, no, put it up there, please. Damn straight. Anyway, the thing that when I was like, okay, this is going to be different was when they sort of introduce his backstory as the comic book because of how much a fan he is of Captain Marvel Jr.
Yeah,
and you see him wearing that lightning bolt that he made for, out of paper. It's like, when I saw that, I was like, okay, not every comic nerd. If you're a comic artist, if you studied that world, if you studied that history, you know that Elvis's costumes at the end when he was playing Vegas, that all came out of his love for Captain Marvel Jr. Yeah, it's like, that's where it came from. So that's one of those little snippets that, again, it's like people didn't talk about. Like I found that out in the comics. I never heard about that from my dad or from many of these other things that talked about. It's like, and the fact that they actually said, no, this was a big part of who he was, of his formative years. And when he's on the Ferris wheel with the Colonel,
he says that he's like, I'm the superhero.
I'm flying for the Rock of Eternity.
Yeah, I want to fly for the Rock of Eternity. And you're like, I'm like, it's like the fact that they pulled that into it was, for me, it's like, okay, they get that's when I knew Baz Luhrmann got what Elvis was really doing with his life and who he was the fact they put that in there, because you really can't separate. And the fact they combined that scene with the revival, right? Because like I said, some of the Elvis songs I like the best, his best performances outside of In the Ghetto, is his gospel music.
The later half.
The
second half of his career, as it were.
Yeah. Right. When he gets into some of his best work is his gospel work, because he loved it so much. And that's like everyone points to his early work. They're like, oh, it's it's blues. It's this is like, but listen to the gospel. Like there's the gospel stuff to it.
Right. That was the popular rock and roll that got everybody to appreciate him. Right.
Yeah.
That was the window. That was the doorway into Elvis, as far as it were, into him as a musician. And then, like this movie does a good job of showing that transition, which, by the way, costumes over the decades, phenomenal. Seeing the different periods of history portrayed in vehicles alone was fantastic.
Loved that.
The fact that they show you the vehicles change, and his span of his career was vast, and I mean, the second half of it, they did a great job of showing how he gets into that and says, I want to do this. And I mean, I had no idea that he put together that entire band in the later half of his career in Vegas. Like I was like, I didn't know that was him. Like I just thought he was, I thought he was some stooge for RCA, who was like, we're going to do this and you're going to be the guy who's going to sing it. Now maybe they had more influence than we're aware of as far as that, because again, this is a movie and it could be taking liberal right? Licensed to do whatever it wants.
Oh,
but
and
I don't know.
They did. I assure you.
Yeah, but I mean, so I don't know what his input was or wasn't on that. But whatever it was or wasn't, he utilized that to the fullest extent that he could have. And
can we talk about two names on this movie that people need to appreciate that they're not going to know? But Jonathan Redmond and Matt Villa. Either of you guys know who they are?
No.
I know those names.
Okay.
I don't know where from, but I know those names.
They're the editors of this movie. And we always talk about bad editing in movies, but I don't think we ever really talk about good editing.
Yeah.
This movie was very well edited. The splices between going back and forth, how they shift into different scenes, how they go back and forth, how they do it simultaneously with some scenes to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Sean's favorite scene, as he was talking about, where caught in a trap, and that just the editing back and forth was phenomenal.
Did these two? I mean, are these Baz Luhrmann's guys? Because I mean, honestly, looking at this, I was getting and specifically that scene, and there's a couple of other scenes. The scenes that are transitioning between Colonel on his deathbed, well, not deathbed, but as the older man in the casino.
Yeah,
you know what I mean, where he's clearly in his mind about this whole thing. I got some serious The Greatest Showman on Earth vibes.
Oh yeah,
off of that, because you're watching it, and I'm just the transition between everything was so big and so bold and so stage-like, and I was just like, man, this is really a Baz Luhrmann film. So I mean, so yeah, it would make sense that he's using the same editors if he's been using them for these other things.
Yeah, I wouldn't have made the Greatest Showman connection, but you're 100% right that this. Yeah, you're.
It had that, but again. It's Baz Luhrmann. It has that, and it's same thing with Moulin Rouge. Moulin Rouge has the same feel to this. I mean, it is those three. You know what? Somebody needs to. Who produced this? Put it together as a triple pack. Sell it as 3.
Yeah, you do.
I
agree.
Movies. You sell those 3 together. You sell Moulin Rouge, Showman, and Elvis.
Great Showman.
That needs to be together in a DVD, Blu-ray, whatever.
Well, I was going to tell you, I'll give this movie the highest praise I can give a movie. I've got it. We saw it streaming, right? HBO, whatever.
Did you buy it on Blu-ray? Or are you?
I'm going to look for that still book case, because this movie's. I want to have this in the collection.
Yeah.
It's
fantastic.
It was a really great movie. It was such a nice break from, like I said, all these
normal
films.
Normal. Yeah. Well, again, I honestly, some of the best stuff that I've been watching is stuff that's not superhero related. This stuff that's a little off the beaten path. Again, Only Murders in the Building.
We've been watching that too. It's very fun.
Great. I have to say, I went back and it's like we got HBO Max again, and I was like, oh, look at all these new movies and television shows. Babylon 5. It was the dawn of the third age of mankind. There we go. But no, but
I think that's a perfect segue there, Jason. But go ahead.
But hold on. But to Sean's point about the editing, and this may be one of the best edits I have seen in a long time of a film. But the thing that got one of my favorite scenes from an editing perspective, outside of the scene you talked about where he's riding caught in a trap, is when he's sitting there with the Colonel is first looking at Elvis, right? And he's watching the mother and the band. They're all talking. Nothing's ever going to come between us. And it immediately switches to the Colonel in Vegas, in his county. He turns around, leans into the camera, and goes, "Want to bet?"
Oh yeah.
It cuts right back. It's like that was freaking editing. It was there, that was genius.
That was good. It was
brilliant.
I will say this movie definitely has the Vagabond Nerd seal of approval. Whatever that means.
Don't do that. Don't put that death nail in that coffin for this movie. Let this movie exist on its own.
There's nothing we can do to her.
That death nail, I love that.
Let people just find it. Listen, we enjoyed it. If we influence you to go find out whether or not you do too, we've done our jobs.
To our one viewer.
To our 2 viewers.
That's it.
No,
if you want to go check it out, check it out. Otherwise, not. Do your own thing. Get this shit.
No, go check it out. Genesis, did you hear us? No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
You know what? That's my ultimate goal. If I could get Genesis to watch this and like this, I will have considered it a well done effort on my part.
Yep. But speaking of genius, go visit Jeremy, who is a genius in his own right, over at Titan Comics. Again, that's all in the doobly-doo below. You know it. You love him. Go get your stuff from him. We'll see y'all when we see you. Who knows?
No, 2 weeks, man. I think
weeks?
we're gonna continue to do more stuff that's not always so comic booky. Perhaps. Right? I don't know. Sean, are you stuck or are you thinking there, buddy?
He's thinking. I'm thinking. I think, yeah, I should be. I think I'll be here on the 17th. We'll see.
There you go. If not,
Genesis will do a better job than I can. So
that's right. Well, no. What did he say last week? When you guys are on the show, it's 33% more wider.
When he joins, when he joins in your place, it's actually it's a wider show than it is not. So yeah.
Love it, love it. All right, everyone, have a great 2 weeks. Be kind to each other. Don't do anything stupid.
Well, stupid is such a.
And on that note, deuce.